Good morning and welcome to Constructionline Talks. We've got quite a few joining us this morning, so I'm just going to give it a few seconds for everybody to actually get connected. In this morning's Constructionline Talks, Tom and myself will be introducing the Issues tab. So the Issues tab is a new feature in your Constructionline profile that's designed to really help you quickly identify any areas that either currently need attention because they've expired or are due to expire, so giving you that future lookout over the next 30 days. The talk is going to be recorded, so you will get a copy sent to you. So any frantic scribbling of notes, then don't worry, you will get a copy of it and you can concentrate on hopefully what's being presented. If you do have any questions, then please do click on the Q&A section at the bottom. We will try and respond to those as we go through the presentation and demonstration this morning, but there'll also be an opportunity to sort of have a wrap up and review of the questions that have been submitted at the end so that everybody can hear the questions and also get the benefit of the feedback. Okay, so what we're going to do in the talk today is give you a brief overview of the Issues tab, take you through some of the details, the background, provide a demo because it's always useful to see it firsthand and understand how it works. And then, as I say, take a review of any questions and answers that have been submitted during the course of the presentation. And then in the final wrap up, just a quick preview of future topics that we'll be covering on the next Constructionline Talks. So before we dive into the Issues tab itself, I really just wanted to spend a minute just looking at the journey and how we've got to introducing some of the features like the Issues tab. And a lot of it really is driven by, I can't really emphasize this more, the feedback that we get when we're either talking directly to customers like yourselves or when you're interacting with the ideas portal, and Tom will talk a little bit more about that, called AHA. And we look in that regularly and are looking for things that are being reported as ways that really could improve how the system could work for your businesses. So it is all about customer-driven development. The system, as you will experience it today, was really the result of a great deal of quantitative and qualitative research, face-to-face interviews. A number of you were really good enough to spare us the time to engage in actually working with some of the earlier wireframes and providing feedback on that, all in the interest of actually just making it a better system. Putting your experience and use of the system at the center is something that we're really trying to do. We've engaged very, very closely with a world-class user experience business to help us deliver a best-in-class experience to you. And then, as I mentioned at the end, Ideas Portal, you're using the system day in and day out, and really, anything that you're suggesting that is a way that we can make an improvement to how it supports your businesses is something that we're really keen to understand and get feedback on. So, please do use the AHA portal to provide that input. It is a real great source of inspiration for us and the development teams going forward. Okay, over to you, Tom.
That's great. Thank you, Mike. So what we're going to do is just have a bit of an overview as to why we've introduced the feature. And what we'd like to do then is go through some of the detail to explain how it works, go into the demonstration so you can see it working in the live system, and then we'll talk about some of the new features that we'll be introducing after that. So the reason that we've introduced the Issues tab is all around making sure that your view of your compliance and the reason for any non-compliance is as visible to you as possible. So as Mike mentioned at the beginning, when we've built the platform out, we went through an engagement piece with customers to understand what you wanted from a platform, and one of the things that came out was around making sure that if there were any issues with your profile, they could be managed by exception. So rather than having to find issues within your profile, dig too far deep in the system to actually identify where there may be issues, if we can give you a place where we can show you by exception any issues you've got with the profile, you can go in there, you can manage them, and you can keep your compliance status. So one of the main things we're trying to do through this, and along with other enhancements we've introduced, is around introducing full continuous compliance, making sure that you're verified as much as possible within the platform, and you keep your compliance so you can get the work that you need to from the customers. So there's a few things that the compliance, the issues tab will do, which will help you manage that ongoing compliance piece. One thing is it'll show you what's not currently verified. So again, not just all your certification you have to enter, it shows you by exception what's not currently verified. It also shows you what's due to expire. So one of the bits of feedback we had was around compliance or verification compliance can be quite a dynamic thing. From one day to the next, you may have an insurance expire, you may have your SSIP expires, but by giving you a forward-facing view of what that compliance is going to do over the next 30 days, it should allow you to help manage it better in terms of identifying what's due to expire and making sure that you've got the right certifications to hand, or you're having the right engagement in order to keep your verification status. And the last thing it'll do is also show you who it's currently with. So clearly, when you go through a verification cycle, there's a certain amount of interaction with our client services team where you'll submit something for verification. We'll then obviously verify it, and it'll then go put your profile into a verified state. What the issues tab will show you is if you're not verified, or maybe even some cases where you are verified, it'll show you whether or not it's with our team verification or it's with yourselves in order for you to complete something for submission. So what I'd like to do now is, Mike mentioned at the beginning that when we first went through the new platform, we went through a lot of engagement with suppliers and buyers to understand how we could be building the platform to kind of service your needs. And I'll introduce Joe now, who basically helped us a lot of that engagement with the portal early on. So what I'd like to do, Joe, if that's okay, is just introduce yourself. Maybe if you could talk about your business and what you do within your company, and maybe your use of Constructionline, that would be really helpful.
Okay, yeah, so we operate with mainly tier 1 contractors and work as a subcontractor for most local authorities. Obviously, Constructionline benefits us from working directly with the likes of Balfour Beatty. And recently I was on a supplier event for Volker Atkins, and they stated there that if you've got Constructionline accreditation, you wouldn't need to go through their PQQ that you normally would as a subcontractor. So Constructionline for us as a business is really important. And I think as we all experienced, last year, it was difficult to keep compliant. But now with this issues tab, you've got a dashboard of all of your issues that are either coming up or have expired. And as Tom says, it's clearer to the right-hand side. It'll tell you whether it's in for assessment, in for verification, and it's easier to manage. Whereas normally when you think you've lost your gold status or silver status, you need to go in and do all of the sections, whereas the issues tab shows you which ones you need to concentrate on and not go through everything. So it helps from that point of view. That's great, thanks, Joe. And just, I think you've already touched on it briefly, but the, I suppose from your perspective, keeping compliance is important, isn't it? Yeah, so yeah, because obviously Balfour Beatty won't issue a purchase order without Constructionline Gold. So for that process to be simpler is obviously important. That's great, thanks, Joe. And I think as well, when we go through the platform, we have some feedback, and we'll circle that back with you and discuss how we incorporate customer feedback as well. So thank you, Joe. No problem. So the first bit to mention is around manager compliance. So I think you should all be fairly familiar with the platform. We've got the compliance tab, which we've had from day one pretty much, which shows you
the various levels that you've got access to. So here we're looking at a profile that's silver, and we can see what level you're verified to, and the badges, if you will. So the silver badges will show you that as a supplier you're signed up to silver, for example. Anywhere we show a red exclamation mark, that's a way of showing you that there's some sort of action that needs to happen as part of that. So this is where you go to manage that. Historically, this has been the only place you can go to in order to identify where your non-compliances are. And this is clearly where you go to if you want to start to have a look at your insurance documentation, any policy information you've entered as part of that as well. So to date, that's been the place to go to. What we've introduced is the issues tab. So again, we'll go through a demonstration in a second. But this is basically designed to help you keep on top of that compliance on an ongoing basis. So the first tab that you would essentially go to check what needs doing. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's all about management by exception. So rather than giving you everything, we only show you those items that need attention. And by clicking onto each one of these links, you're able to then go through into that requirement in order for you to then submit your SSIP, for example, as we can see here. There's a couple of things I'll sort of highlight to you here, and I'll go through this in a bit more detail when we look at the system itself. But we can see that we've got your various requirements and we've got the verification status. We've also got the advisory or issues here. And there's various tabs to look at here. So we can see anything that's expired. We can see anything that's due to expire. So anything where we show the orange clock that is in a verified state currently, but is due to expire in the next 30 days. And we've also got this rejection feedback. So here, for example, we've got an advisory, but this has gone through a verification cycle, and some feedback has been provided by a verifications team, and that again needs attention in order to get verified. There's three sections to it. There's the requirements, which is anything to do with your gold, silver, bronze accreditation. There's also the work categories, so any information about your the work cats that you submitted, and there's also the buyer connections, and we'll talk a bit about buyer connections in a second, but that's something that will be growing out increasingly, where based on your customers, they will have particular requirements of you from a verification perspective. So depending on who that client is, they may require you to be on a gold, for example, and the buyer connections will show you that to be on the supply chain for this main contractor, this is the level that you need to be at. What we're also building out is the capability to do that on a project by project basis. So you may see that if you're working with the main contractor on a particular project, you'll see a buyer connection for that, and you'll see that in order for you to get into a compliant position for that particular project, you'll need to have, for example, a gold verified status. So that's something that you'll be seeing in use increasingly. It also gives you visibility of the main contractors that are connected with you in the platform as well. The other thing that Will mentioned just as part of this, because we've released it fairly recently, is the download certificates. So previously, if you want to look at your certificate information, that was visible via a link on the app introduction page. So when you went on to manage compliance, you go to it from there or from the Constructionline website directly. That's now available within the platform. So one thing to mention is that in order for you to download your certificates, you have to be verified to at least one level. But you'll see at the top right hand side there, you can select download certificates, and then depending on the level that you're verified to, so here bronze, for example, you can download a certificate. They'll create a PDF for you of your document, and you can then keep a copy of that if you want to do so. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to minimize that. I'm going to take you through to a live, well, it's actually a test system that we have. And what this will do is show you your issues. So here we've got some test data we've created. And the issues tab will give you an overview of what's currently verified and not verified. There's a few extra bits in here as well, which I'd like to bring your attention to. So the first one is that we'll have situations where, for example, I am verified for environmental, but it's due to expire. So the expiration date for this is within the next month, and therefore I can see that that's something that I want to keep an eye on. I can also see I've got some requirements up here that are currently not verified. and there's issues with those. But I can also see that there may be instances where I'm verified, but actually I've had some rejected feedback. And the reason that we now support that is because whereas in the past, when you submit something for verification and you got feedback from our verifications team, we would automatically put you into, or the system would put you into a non-verified state because you had a new document that needs to be updated. What now happens is that provided that the answer you provided previously is still valid, so if it was a certificate, that certificate was still in date, for example, you can still submit a new version of that same requirement whilst keeping your verification status. So in this example, I'm answering information on my primary contact and I'm updating that information, but because the previous answer is still valid, I can then submit new answers to that, get them verified, and keep my compliance status throughout. What I can also see is the expiration date, and I can also see what it's affecting. What this means is, for example, company details, what's that a requirement of? So company details is something that you'll need of any level, be it platinum, gold, or silver. So they're listed in here. I've also got some buyer connections. So these are clients that are connected to my profile who require that I complete the identity section as part of their profile. So I can see exactly what I need to do in order to work with a particular main contractor, as well as what I need to do to attain a particular level within my profile. You can also see the submission column. So this will show you submission. So is it in for assessment? So that means it's essentially with Constructionline, or is it something that I'm currently working on? So I'm actually updating the answers myself, and therefore with me to complete and submit in order for it to get verified. We've also got the work categories. So this will show us the details of all the work categories I've submitted and what's currently verified and what's not. So there may be work categories I've added but not yet submitted, or there may be certification that is required as part of a work category that has expired, which needs attention. So all that information will be shown to you. We've also got the buyer connections. So this will show me that there are 2 main contractor links with my profile. And as I mentioned earlier, you may not have any in a minute, but this will be something that will be expanded out as this gets adopted. If I go through to status, so this shows you the compliance page, which is obviously the information around your overall compliance, and you can see what you're verified to. As I mentioned earlier, we've got the download certificates link is now within the profile. So if I select that, anything that I've currently got a verified state for, I can download the certificate, it'll open up a PDF document, and I can then keep that if I want to, or share that if I need to if I need to do so. We've also got the buyer connection. So here we're looking at the links that I have as a business. So we saw earlier, I had 2 links, and we can see further details of those clients here. So we could look at who we're linked to and whether or not I am verified in order to meet the requirements of those clients. So we can see here we've got 2 client information, obviously one an internal demo account, and we can then see the details of what I need to do in order to reach verification for that main contractor. And we can see the various sections that need to be completed as part of that. Okay, so I think that's pretty much everything I need to go through on the demo side. What I'm going to do now is open up the PowerPoint presentation and go from there. So I think just to sort of, before I hand back over to Mike, one of the things that he mentioned, it was around the feedback on the platform, and that's obviously key for us. And I know a number of you have been submitting ideas via the portal, and they're really valuable for us. As Mike mentioned at the top as well, the whole platform was developed in line with feedback, and that's something that we're looking to continue moving forward. Now, Joe and I were talking last week, and I think there was some particular feedback, Joe, that you have on the issues tab around, and I'm sort of paraphrasing here, but let me know if this is right, but potentially around when you click onto a link to then view the details, going through to exactly the area that needs attention. Is that fair? Yeah, so there'll be some sections, if we take business and professional standing, that's got potentially quite a few questions in there, or maybe you've got 5 different insurances, maybe one of them needs attention, the other one doesn't. So something that Joe's identified is potentially, rather than just taking you through to the overall section, if we can take you through to the individual question or document that needs attention, that would help navigation.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very good idea. So what I would suggest is I'm going to try and get everyone who's on this call a link to AHA to submit ideas on this, but also on the platform in general, and also the ability to vote on ideas as well. So I'll add that idea in there. If you've got your own ideas, please do vote on them as well, because your feedback's really valuable. So thank you. Okay, so I think we're going to allow a bit of time for Q&A. I can see there's some questions coming through as we speak, so we'll have a look at those now.
Thanks, Tom. I've been responding to a number of the questions as they've been coming in. I think let's just pick up some of the themes. There's been a number of questions along the common theme of the time currently being taken to complete a verification or assessment on information that's been submitted. So I think one thing I can say on that is I do know that over the last 4 weeks, there's been a significant increase in submissions, I think largely related to year end for a lot of businesses. We brought in additional teams and working some additional overtime shifts in order to bring that down. Our aim is that during April, that should get back under 5 days. I think prior to the beginning of the new year, we were running at about 2 days, and one point we did get it just below a day. So our aim is that we can turn that round quickly for you. There'd been a question around grace period. The question around grace period is it's not something that's entirely within our gift. It's something that we are consulting with the contractors that you work with around grace periods. But I guess, as you might appreciate, things like insurance are a little bit more of a critical area. And whilst everybody understands the concept of grace period, it can also obviously create a little bit of problems. So we'll continue to look at that, and we'll come back perhaps on one of these sessions later in the year if we do get some progress. One of the other things that we are looking to do to mitigate some of those particular problems where grace periods might be very useful is around the insurance and health and safety. So as of this week, we're now putting to the front of the queue any submissions that are either insurance or health and safety related, so that they are getting addressed immediately. And if for any reason a submission is returned to yourself with a request for further information, rather than that going to the back of the queue, if it's a continuous submission, that's also going to be prioritized. So what we're aiming to do is speed up the work that we can do and the way that we can get particularly important documents like insurance and health and safety verified, which I do know from the chat are sometimes difficult to submit ahead of time. Obviously, what Tom was just taking you through is the kind of capability within the platform to allow you to address other areas that might be due to expire before they do, without affecting your profile. Tom, I don't know if there's any other areas that you're picking up on.
I mean, there's obviously lots of questions in here, so thank you. One question was around buyer connections and how they're added. So currently they're added by the main contractor themselves. Once you're added onto a supply chain or a project, that's when you'll see them. However, the ability for you to add them as well is something that we've looked at in the past. So that's excellent feedback. So potentially when we get you the links to AHA, if that's the kind of thing that you'd be interested in doing, we can you can add that as an idea. That would be ideal. I think there's quite a few to go through. What I probably need to do, Mike, is go through and we can probably just respond individually, because there's a lot come through.
Okay.
Great. So yeah, so onto the document library. Mike, do you want to talk through this?
Yep. So the document library is. I noticed actually one of the questions that came through was what was the document tab, but one of the areas that has received a significant amount of interest through the AHA Ideas portal has been the whole topic of making it much easier to upload or find documents that you've previously uploaded when you want to complete your profile. So a development that will begin in April and hopefully will launch towards the end of that month is what we're calling the document library, where we're looking at a way of trying to greatly simplify that process and make it much easier for any of your businesses where you've previously uploaded a document, perhaps in insurance or health and safety. It'll show you the documents that you've uploaded for that particular section, and you can select from them as appropriate. So look out for the invitations to the next Constructionline Talks, where we'll be covering that topic. And yeah, hopefully that'll be something that will really improve that whole area of user experience for you.
That's great. So I think that's pretty much everything. I can see further questions coming through, so I think we'll address those separately with you. Thank you for raising those. But yeah, thank you for your time, and thank you, Joe, for joining us.
No problem. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.